that a cup of red wine a day is good for the heart. But then recently they've been going back and saying that actually, those studies that we did, they're wrong. There's no conclusive evidence to point to the fact this claim that red wine is good for the body. Actually, it's not good for the body. And then lately I saw something else that said that another type of alcohol is good for the body. So if we have this shallow sort of picture of the laws, then we could say that, okay, yeah, whether I'm going to or not drink alcohol depends on my conscience and what is good and not as good. I'll just follow what the medical community says on that issue. But the medical community themselves don't even know what's right and what's wrong. And even furthermore, when we're trying to make the decision about whether to eat or not, or whether to drink or not, the fundamental point is that we're ignoring the inner dimension of what sort of effect that is having on our soul. Maybe somebody who is drinking, they might be enjoying it on a physical level, but on a spiritual level, their soul is crying out. And they're like, what are you doing to me? Why are you torturing me the same way? The same thing with other things as well. The same thing with haram music. We might be enjoying it on a physical level, but on a spiritual level, we might be screaming in pain. How do we know? So that's one point where we realize that our conscience is limited because we don't have access to the inner dimension of the world. Other example. There's sometimes when our conscience leads us to coming to two different conclusions on one point, and we don't know which one to choose. And then we're stuck. We're like, should we do A or should we do B? What's the right thing to do? I want to be a good person. Should I roll a dice then? Like, how am I going to know? For example, there's an issue that comes up when it comes to taking care of children and how it is that we should take care of children. For example, there might be a mother who is torn. Part of her conscience tells her that she should dedicate all of her efforts towards raising her child. And you see people like this. You see people like mothers, when they have a child, they become 100% like mom. Alright, at all times, like it's about her and her children. And when you talk to somebody like that, okay, immediately the conversation will turn to the children. You'll be like, how are you doing? And she'll be like, oh, my kids are doing fine today. My kids woke up and and one of them is sick today or something. And then you ask them about their child and you say, okay, well, how's your son doing? And then the mother will say, well, we're having a cranky day today. Okay, well, I didn't ask you about we, I asked you about your child, but it's like we. Because they're so involved with their child. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward them for their concern, right? And it gets to the point where it gets very extreme. Like at home, they forget the importance of still being a wife. They forget that they are a mother, but they also have to be a wife at the same time. And so, for example, at home, they're always dressed in motherly clothes. Okay, motherly clothes are like, baggy jeans and sweatshirts. Okay, but they forget that no, there's something else some other responsibilities that they have as well. So this is one extreme. Now, such a person can get to the point where they forget about themselves. When it comes to the salat, okay, the whole day they're taking care of the kids. At the last moment in the day, right before they go to sleep, that's when they say their prayers. Because the whole day they're busy with their kids, right? Reading books, learning about Islam, further studies, spirituality, it goes off to the side. Because if you want, I have experience in this field now. If you want, your child can take up all your time. They're more than willing to take up every moment of the day you have, every moment of free time that you have. So this is one extreme that we see, and people say that they can justify this. They can say that that's my responsibility. I have to give 110% to my child. Now, the conscience could lead to another route of thinking. It could say that, when it comes to the child, well, the child is his own individual, and I'm my own individual. And just because I had a kid, that doesn't mean I have to really change. And so you see that some parents, they have kids, and it's like a 6-week affair. Or after the 9 months of pregnancy, it's like 6 weeks they take off, and then pretty much it's back into the sort of swing of things. Okay, daycare, like babysitting, and then they use all the modern conveniences to have their children taken care of. And pretty much it's the child being raised by other people. And in this society, there's a lot of people and experts who would say that that's the right way to take, because a woman has to have her career, she has to make sure that she doesn't stump her career just because she had a child. Now, somebody who comes into this world and they're saying that I want to be a good person, I want to make the best decisions, they're confronted with these two different forks in the road. How are they going to know which decision to make? They're stuck. They need some other guidance to come and tell them that, you know what, your conscience is limited. You don't know what the right thing is to do in this case. Let me tell you what the right thing is to do. So Islam comes and says that the most important thing is that you have a balance in your life, and you should never forget about yourself. And if you want to be an effective parent, the only way you can be an effective parent and teach your children to be good people is by becoming a good role model. So for example, if you want your children to be reading Quran, you have to read Quran. If you want them to pray on time, you have to pray on time. That's the best way of teaching them, not by telling them and then doing something else yourself. If you want them to be people who are spiritual, you yourself have to be ahle ibadat. You have to be somebody who worships and wakes up on time and supplicates to their Lord earnestly. That's when you'll see that your children are doing the same thing. If the most important thing that we have to do as believers, as slaves of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is to learn about the faith and to learn about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If we don't have a portion of our day dedicated towards that, sometime in a schedule which is reserved for learning about Allah, then how are we going to be effective when trying to teach our children about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So there has to be a balance. At the same time, we shouldn't completely leave our children to other people. We have to take care of them. That's our responsibility as well. There's the middle approach. So there's some cases, brothers and sisters, where our conscience falls short. Let me give you another example after you recite Salawat. Another example is the issue of a husband being concerned and protective over his wife. There was a time in this country and worldwide where you would find that in general, when you had a couple, the husbands would be protective over the wives, the brothers would be protective over the sisters, and this would be a notion that was well accepted. Like, it wouldn't be okay if my sister is being, is out there in public and, for example, other guys are talking at her or looking at her. In this society, the brother will get very upset because it was improper. But you'll see that after the passage of time, for various reasons, that concept is going away or has gone away. And now you'll see that sometimes, for example, you'll have a man who's happy when he sees his wife dancing with other men. Okay, it's something that he takes pride in. He's like, okay, my wife dressed up today and now she's dancing with other men. He takes pride in that. Inshallah, this isn't anything that we see among the Muslim gatherings, but it is something in the society. So, if we look at it though, the fitra, the way that human being was created is such that a man would not want his wife to be out there and to be, looked at and be touched by and etc. by the other men. That's not part of the way that it was created. But now, it might be something that's very accepted in the society. In Islam, this concept is called ghaira. And there are there's very strong hadith which tell us that a man who does not have ghaira will, XYZ, there's punishments there for a man who doesn't have this sense of protectiveness over his wife. So, what happened? What happened, brothers and sisters, is that because of various factors, the society's conscience has overridden our own conscience. And that even though we were created in a way that we understood at one point what is right and what is wrong, the society came along and it said, no, this is right and this is wrong. It's exactly opposite. What's the proof of this? The proof is that historians have shown that in the countries of Turkey and Germany, there was a time when in both of these countries you had traditional families, and traditional families were very strong. And they had this notion of protectiveness. But then the enemy had, they wanted to erode this. And through various means, they attempted to combat this sense of traditionalism. And they succeeded in the case of Germany. If you go to Germany right now, that notion of the traditional family is something which it's a far cry from what it used to be.